everybody, I'm Sally with OwlCrate Jr. and I'm here today with a list of time travel recommendations. This is in celebration of our June time travel box. As of uploading, it is still available and we will leave a link down below with a coupon code if you would like to save a little bit off of your first box. I have 8 books for you. They are all very different. I've got some for kids and some for adults, and what I am so excited about is the range of different ways that you can time travel in fiction. I've got a little bit of everything, so let's dive straight in. The first on my list is The Prisoner of Azkaban by J.K. Rowling. This is, of course, the 3rd Harry Potter book and involves the Time Turner. As you probably know, the Time Turner is a device that is given to Hermione so that she can go to her very full class schedule, even though there are conflicting times, and still make it to all of them. But this Time Turner then plays a very important role towards the end of the book. If anybody in the world out there hasn't read this one yet, I won't spoil how, but this is definitely an OwlCrate team favorite. Next up is A Wrinkle in Time by Madeleine. This one was written in 1963 and is still a mainstay of middle grade sci-fi. The plot is a little bit hard to explain if you haven't already read it, but it involves a tesseract and quantum theory and very mysterious neighbors that open doors into other worlds. And our main character, Meg, and her little brother, Charles Wallace, go on a wild adventure to try and rescue their father, who has mysteriously gone missing. It really still holds up. The language can be a little bit stilted by today's standards, I think. So if you are not into reading the classic in its original form, I highly recommend also checking out the graphic novel that came out a few years ago. Next up, we have another classic, and that is A Traveler in Time by Alison Uttley. This one was published in 1939 and is still one of the sort of gold standards of time travel in children's fiction. Our main character, Penelope, is sort of like a sickly young girl, and her mother sends her to go live in the country to get some fresh air with some family. So her family's place in Derbyshire, England is this ancient farmhouse just steeped in history, and she's drawn to sort of a very particular area of the farmhouse. And it turns out that she can actually step through a door into the 16th century where she is suddenly embroiled in a plot to save Mary, Queen of Scots. It's one of the first examples of time slip, which is a category that I only very recently learned the word for. So rather than have a device or a machine of some sort, there is just like a fantastical element to these stories where you can literally just step back in time. If you are a fan of classic middle grade literature, I highly recommend picking this one up. Next we have The Stormkeeper's Island by Catherine Doyle. This was time travel in a way that I had never seen presented before. Basically, our main character Finn goes to Erinmore Island, which is where his grandfather lives and where his mother grew up. There's just like magic steeped into this island. And it turns out that his grandfather is the Stormkeeper, and he stores memories of the island and the people of the island in candles. So within Erinmore Island, you can travel within like layers of memory of the island, but only within that one area by burning one of these candles. Such a beautiful story. I can't recommend it enough. We included it in a past OwlCrate Jr. box, and it's just fantastic. The sequel comes out in January 2020. I can't wait. And the final one of my middle grade picks is A Handful of Time by Kit Pearson. Kit Pearson was one of my all-time favorite authors as a kid. I read her entire catalog and just loved it, and this was a real summertime classic for me. Our main character, Patricia, is sent again to stay with family that she doesn't really know, because her parents are finalizing their divorce. So she is unbelievably unhappy and has to go stay with this family that she's barely met before. Her cousins think that she's kind of lame and sad and don't want to spend any time with her, and her aunt just kind of pities her and is sorry for her. So she spends a lot of time alone in one of the sort of smaller cabins at this lake where her mom spent her summers growing up. And under the floorboards she finds an old gold watch, and when she winds it, she goes back in time to when her mother was her age, to the summer when she was 12. What I think is really interesting about this time travel one is that she is invisible in the time that she travels back to, so she's just kind of watching her mom rather than becoming friends with her or something. But it's a lovely family story, a really lovely like coming of age story, and also is a very good depiction of divorce for kids. So it's multi-layered and I just love it. Now on to some adult picks. The first one is The Time Traveler's Wife by Audrey Niffenegger. This is one of my all-time favorite books and one of the few that I can reread over and over and over again. It is a boy meets girl type story, but with a very complicated twist. Our main characters are Henry and Claire. We find out that Henry has something called chronodisplacement disorder, which basically means he has a genetic mutation that causes him to disappear into various points of time, sometimes with himself, sometimes in the past, but basically all of the places that he goes back to are tied to emotional events in his own life. Claire is the love of his life, and you get alternating chapters from their points of view. But Claire meets Henry for the first time when she's a little girl, but Henry doesn't meet Claire until he's in his 20s. So they're constantly overlapping throughout history. And it's just this beautiful, heartbreaking, lovely romance. I can't recommend it enough. It's just beautiful. Read it. Don't bother watching the movie. Read the book. Next we have Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. This is by far the most sci-fi-y of all of these picks, and is also a real thriller. Our main character, Jason Dessen, is an atomic physicist who is teaching at a local university and has a wife and daughter, and isn't quite at the level of success that he wants to be, but has a happy life. So he goes out to meet a friend for a drink one night, and on his way home is drugged and abducted, and when he wakes up, he is in an alternate timeline where he is still Jason Dessen, but he is a very successful atomic physicist, but without a family. So he has to figure out what on earth has happened, and does his family even still exist? And it is just a page turner. It is scary and violent in some points, but so cool, and also taught me about the multiverse theory a little bit. I won't try to explain it to you, but I do recommend you read the book. And my final recommendation is Making History by Stephen Fry. This is a take on the sort of age-old question about what would you do if you could go back in time and stop Hitler. So the main characters in this one are a history grad student and an old German physicist who, through the use of a laptop time machine, go back and prevent Hitler from ever being born. And then come back to their time thinking like, done and dusted, the world is going to be better off. And it turns out they have very much changed the world for the worse. I like this kind of time travel that you can change the future by changing the past. It opens up all kinds of fun doors. And this is just Stephen Fry at his best with social satire. So those are 8 of my favorite time travel books, but there are obviously so many that I didn't include on here, including classics like H.G. Wells' The Time Machine, which I've actually never read, so I have to add that to my TBR pile, obviously. I would love to hear your favorite time travel recommendations. You can leave those in the comments below. If you like this video, give it a big thumbs up and subscribe for more bookish videos every week. Happy reading, and thanks for being awesome.